Hey folks, it's Kaya and it's time for our Monday meditation. This is just where we give you some points to ponder for the week. I think this is maybe our fourth or fifth one of these. And so I encourage you, if you haven't, to go back and watch some of the other ones. But to really mull over throughout the week or throughout the day the things that are presented and the things that are said. And if you find anything that's useful, make a comment and say what that is. Our scripture this week is coming from Psalm chapter 1. It happens to be one of my most favorite Psalms. And it actually is a contrast between righteous living versus ungodly living. It starts off with, blessed is the man who does not do these things, but then he does these things, so he ends up with this result. And then the ungodly, it gives a parallel of what happens to the ungodly. And verse 6 actually says, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. And so it gives you a parallel or contrast, godly living versus ungodly living. It's really clear here. But our focus for this week is going to be verse 1. And it says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, or sits in the seat of the scornful. And so this whole verse is admonishing us to watch the company that we keep. But it also gives us a natural progression of how we end up in a place where I always call it the Deborah Cox moment. How did I even get here? Right? What happened? How did I end up in this place? And so it gives us the natural progression of how things like that can happen. I had no intention of being over here. I was on this kind of road. And how in the world did I end up over here? And this verse actually gives us the natural progression of what that looks like. Not only does it admonish us not to walk in the counsel of the ungodly, which can only take us so far, right? So if I'm a Christian doing all my best to live according to the Bible, and the advice you give me contradicts what's written there, it's not a good look, right? Whereas what makes sense to you is to do this, that, and a third, but it goes against the scripture that I live by. It's a no-go there. And then it also talks about standing in the way of sinners. Sin by nature is missing the mark, right? So do I surround myself with people who get it wrong all the time? Do I surround myself with people who miss it all the time, or who are comfortable missing it, or who live a lifestyle where they miss it, right? And so what it's saying is that we need to be careful, because we'll go from being the influencer to being the influenced. We'll go from being the persuader to being persuaded. And it also talks about sitteth in the seat of the scornful. These people are mockers. They mock everything that has to do with God, Jesus, church. Do it take all that? Do you need to do all of those things? I don't understand why you still pay tithes. I don't understand why you give your money to the preacher. Do you have to go to church every Sunday? These are people, the man is blessed who does not surround himself with these type of people. And I'm not saying it has to be us against them or anything of that nature. I'm just saying we want to make sure that we are watching the company that we're keeping, whose advice we're taking. And the natural progression here is what stood out to me this week. The man started off walking, and then he ended up standing around, and eventually he just ended up sitting. You went from a place where you were walking past to where you start standing around and hanging around, and then eventually you just sat full down in it. And this is how you end up at point Z when you were trying to get to point F. You end up over somewhere else when you was trying to, do what you were trying to do. And so I encourage you this week to kind of take stock of who have you surrounded yourself with. Do they encourage you to be better, to do better, to reach higher? Or are they comfortable missing it? Do they scorn the things that you bring up and say, I'm considering this? Do you have friends that can pray for you, who can get a prayer through, who not making it up? Do you have people that you can take wise counsel from, who are strong, who have a strong foundation in the word, who you can reach out to and say, hey, this is what I'm considering. What do you think? and not getting their advice from the Real Housewives of whoever, right? And so we just want to make sure that we take stock this week and look at our company, the company that we're keeping, and making good decisions about what that should look like.